Hey everyone, welcome back for another Zephyr Tech Talk. We are at the end of February. I mean, you know that if you're watching us live, just mentioning it just in case you're watching the recording or the replay on YouTube. Zephyr 3.6 was just released a few days ago, as every 4 months, I believe. Well, I'm sure actually. And we're going to talk about all things Zephyr 3.6 today. So super excited to be back. As we collect people, as always, I like to get a sense of where people are joining us from. Hello from Barcelona, from my side today, attending Mobile World Congress this week. A bit too much information, but yeah, there you go. And yeah, we will talk about all things Zephyr 3.6. So really curious to see already in the comments where you're joining us from, and if you've already had time to check out 3.6, you can also mention that for sure. Let me, yeah, just as a way to sort of kick off the session today, you may have seen the announcement. I encourage you, and I will post the link to the blog post that just went out a few days ago. But basically, yeah, we put a blog post announcing some of the highlights. We will be going through them with some of the maintainers, contributors who helped make them happen. Just wanted to share also this video that has some really cool demos of some of the things that went into the release. What I actually wanted to show is some of the really nice comments that we had. People feel like it's Christmas already, so that was quite fun, quite nice to see. Yeah, really encourage you to check out the demo video and to stay tuned, because today we're kind of reaching the cap almost of the platform we're using for streaming. I will be pulling and putting everyone on screen. Everyone will have a chance to say hi, and we will go around the table. We have basically, again, maintainers, release managers who helped make Zephyr 3.6 a reality. So let's go around the table in no particular order. Please, guys, folks, like tell us a bit like who you are, where you're joining us from, because that's like part of the thing here, and what was your role, or like what's your implication in Zephyr in general and 3.6 in particular. Robert, why don't you start?
Hello everyone, my name is Robert Lubos. I work for Nordic Semiconductor in Krakow, Poland. And as for Zephyr, I'm a co-maintainer of the networking subsystem.
Okay.
I'm next. Yeah. So hello everyone. I'm Flavio Solim, software engineer at Intel. I'm calling from Seattle, and I'm on Zephyr. I'm the current security architect for the project, and also maintain another subsystems.
Thanks for the reminder that I usually schedule those talks at 3 p.m. European time, which is really early for you. Thanks so much for joining, since you're on the West Coast. We have Alberto next.
Yes, so I'm Alberto from Nordic Semiconductor. I have been a maintainer in the Zephyr project for quite a few years now, and now I will be one of the release managers for 3.7.
Awesome. And I'm trying to do my best at multitasking, but I think everyone is seeing that. We have people from Pakistan, from Kenya. That's really cool. We have people from Austin, Texas. Is that correct, Maureen?
Yes. Hello from Austin, Texas. Yeah, my name is Maureen. I'm a maintainer. I work at Analog Devices, and I was one of the 2 release managers for 3.6.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to talk in a bit about what that means to be a release manager for those who are not familiar, or who have questions maybe also in the audience. We have Fabio.
Hello, I'm Fabio. I'm with Google, based in Dublin, Ireland. Yeah, I'm the maintainer of the input subsystem.
Awesome. Bjarki, people know you by now. It's like your fourth time on the show.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm Bjark. I work at Track Unit up there, and I maintain too many subsystems. Luckily, they're quite small. The RTC, GNSS, and modem subsystem. Yeah, and yeah, for this release, I will get into that. That's me.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Brix. Work for Vestas. do wind turbines and use Zephyr for that. I'm located in Aarhus, Denmark, and also the other of the two release engineers for Zephyr 3.6.
Awesome. And I think you're the second, if not more, person with a kite in the background. It makes me think that at some point we should do some kind of game or raffle for our attendees to win a kite. Last but not least, we have Anas. You're mute. I can unmute you.
Yeah, hey, Anas Nasher here, calling from Montreal, Canada. The PC chair of the project. Also will be the working on the release with Alberto for 3.7, and
awesome.
Among many other things. So.
And I passed over Luca. Thanks, Luca, for the
hello.
reminder. Sorry about that. It's lots of multitasking. Welcome.
Too many people. Hi, everyone. This is Luca from Arduino. I'm a firmware engineer here in Turin, Italy, and I've been working on the LLX subsystem.
Yeah, that was quite a highlight of the release. So we'll have a chance to learn more about it and talk about what went in the release. Let's put everyone back on screen for a moment. Maybe as a way to get started, one way to approach it would be, and like first I should mention, as always, and as we get more and more people tuning in, either on LinkedIn or YouTube, please send all the questions you may have, questions or comments, so that we can address them with people we have on the show today. It's not often that we have so many maintainers. So please shout all your questions. And as a way to get started, maybe a question to our release managers, Maureen and Briggs. Can you maybe tell us a bit about what it takes or what it means to be a release manager for Zephyr? What was your role, and maybe based on the role and the particular things that you've been working on for the release, maybe you can tell us a bit about some of the things that you thought were particularly notable and interesting in the release, new features, new things that happened. So Maureen, Briggs, whoever wants to start.
Sure. Well, I can go first. So this was my first time as serving as a release engineer for Zephyr, and it's been quite the amazing experience to see the community come together and work through this sprint. We had a cadence of 4 months between the releases. So the first 3 months, that's we do the release engineering team. We do weekly meetings for triaging incoming bug reports and monitoring CI and whatnot. And then when we get closer and closer to the release, we get more and more in control of what is going into the tree, and trying to get all major bugs resolved, of course. And we had these release criteria. We didn't really get a chance to meet them this time, but it's a nice guideline as to when we are ready to cut the release.
So things how many bugs are open, how many bugs are acceptable to have, those are the kind of things that go into the release criteria, right?
Yes. Yeah. And of course, having a green CI, no failing builds and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a lot of work. And I saw you and Maureen were awake and were you had a weekend that was sort of amputated by some of the work on the release. That's much appreciated. Let's see. Actually, there is, you know what? I mean, Maureen, do you have other thoughts on or comments on sort of the release management aspect specifically, or otherwise there's already a question that's lined up in the chat, and then we can also start talking about some of the features.
Yeah, sure. I'll tag onto that a little bit. I mean, I'd say this was my third, I think, release as release manager. The first time since we instituted kind of doing it in pairs. So the first two I had done on my own, and this one was having the opportunity to work with Briggs. And I think it's been interesting. As the project continues to grow, we have more and more pull requests to merge over the course of the 4 months. And so the first like 3 months or so, are not too bad, right? Because most of the release team helps out with merging pull requests, and it's kind of a group activity. And then things get really busy in the last couple of weeks when we start cutting release candidates, trying to lock down the merge window to new features and things like that. So, but I think for me, like a particular highlight was some work that Fabio had done to try to ease that process of merging this huge queue of pull requests. It's always been a challenge to make sure that a pull request meets all the criteria that we've defined in the process working group in the TSC. And I think that that was a particular highlight for me. And I think it helped enable not just the release managers, but the entire release team to work together really well.
Yeah, it's always funny and interesting because like the project is now so big that yes, Zephyr is meant to be an open source project that delivers an RTOS, but effectively there's just so much happening that some of the people involved in the project, they have to work on like DevOps sort of tasks and do more than just like coding new features. Like we have to sort of come up with our own tools and infrastructure sometimes. So I promised. Mahmoud has a question on LinkedIn. I will put it on screen briefly, but just as a way to sort of come back to it later. It might actually make sense to, and I think Bjarki is already addressing it on LinkedIn, so thanks for that. We might actually come back to it maybe in the context of LLX and like what it takes to have Zephyr to be more dynamic. Does it even make sense? But yeah, thanks for the question and keep them coming. I will, let me share my screen again. Let's start and go around the some of the things that so it's always again and Maureen touched on that and so did Briggs that there's literally thousands of commits and hundreds of contributors and like things that happened in the past 4 months. So highlighting some of the work is always kind of a challenge because there's lots of work that doesn't necessarily materialize itself in terms of a new shiny feature that is easy to talk about and demo. But that being said, there's a few things that sort of the project agreed were sort of the highlights. And so this is pretty much in no particular order, but we will use the order that we have all under our eyes as a way to drive the conversation. A new feature, kind of a continuation of the work that went into improving the management of all things modems, is the new GNSS subsystem that Bjarki and others have been working on. So Bjarki, maybe can you tell us a bit about like maybe why you specifically tackled and worked on this particular subsystem and issue, and what are some of the things that people should know about? What's next maybe also for things like modems and GNSS subsystem?
Yeah, so at Track Unit, we make telematics devices. So knowing where you are and being able to send that somewhere is kind of important. And the way we do that is modems. So it makes a great deal of sense to us to have very good device driver and API support of modems, specifically cellular and GNSS modems in our case. So we essentially started or made a subsystem for interacting with modems, so sending and receiving text-based commands and doing a lot of, let's say, abstraction from the UART and stuff like that to make it easier to work with. And then on top of that, creating APIs to be able to get things like a location in a parsed manner. So instead of getting raw NMEA 0183 messages or other UBX protocols to get positions, you would get it in a, let's say, more mathematically appropriate format like decimal degrees, longitude, latitude. So it's essentially just making life way easier if you are dependent on those devices, specifically if you are not depending on or if you are making devices that are not directly tied to a vendor. So you can exchange a modem from QuickTel to uBlocks, for example, without having to rewrite your application. So yeah, there's a lot of benefit in it to us. And I think most users of Zephyr having this be actually generic. So there's a great deal of value in it, at least for us. So
nice. And actually, a question from me to you, and maybe to the audience. Speaking of the math involved behind like computing location and distances and whatnot, like are there good open source libraries out there that maybe we should look at integrating to facilitate like whenever people want to compute geofences or like again distances, etc. I guess it would make sense to have a module that you can easily pull into your app to do that. Like, could that be an option? Like,
the API is designed to be essentially interoperable with some math libraries. Currently, there are no libraries to calculate, for example, the distance between 2 points in longitude latitude, but the values or the API provides them as longitude latitude in formats that are easily computable.
Right.
So the idea is to have a navigation subsystem on top of this that provides those utilities. So you get the location from the GNSS and then, have some layer on top. I've not seen any yet, but really it's more of a math problem than a module problem. So getting all of those ATANG and things like that implemented, that would essentially provide that for us. It's something that has been thought into the design, but it's not there yet.
And definitely computing the distance shouldn't be the most complicated things. I was more thinking about complex geometries, etc. But cool. Thanks for that. Let's bring back the other please keep the questions coming. Like if you have questions for Bjarki or others, really, just don't wait until we are well into the live stream, because if we have tons of questions at the end, it's always a challenge. What else, Fabio and others, you've been working on, I think in 3.4, introduced a new subsystem for all things input devices, and in 3.6 specifically, you added support for keyboard matrices. So I'm actually curious to hear your story there. Like, is this a pet project? Is this something that's also maybe something that Google is interested in? I guess it's a bit of both, because but tell us.
So the whole input subsystem was started as a work project, obviously, and it's still pretty young and very active. We got a lot of activities in all the recent releases. So the keyboard one is the most recent one, and that was actually what started the whole effort. So the recent driver that went in 3.6 actually started as an effort for deduplicating all of the driver for the various embedded controller chips that were in the tree previously. There are 3 there: microchip, an IT one, and an Uvoton one. And we use all of them in the Chromebook EC firmware. So they were independent driver, but they were largely a copy paste of each other. And then over time, they diverged with the feature that they had. So the recent effort was a deduplication of that code, and that meant that the driver got ported to the input subsystem, and in the process, the common part got split into a separate keyboard matrix scanning library. Now that was the part I officially worked for Chrome OS. Now in the process of doing that, and for various reasons, I added an extra driver on top of the library to use the same library with GPIOs essentially, which means that the library can now be used with any chip. And can you present my screen, Ben? So I want to spend a couple of words on that. So this is the documentation of the driver. This is the GPIO driver, which uses the GPIO keyboard matrix driver that uses the keyboard matrix library. And there's nothing super special about a keyboard matrix driver per se, but it's hard to get one, to write one that can be used in all possible configuration. And this is particularly configurable. So what I want to highlight is that it supports both normal matrices with no isolation diodes. This is useful, for example, if you're converting an existing keyboard, which I actually did myself and is not supported by your driver. For example, the ZMK keyboard matrix driver does not support this use case. You're going to get shorts and the keys are going to ghost. So you can use this, and you have ghosting detection. But then if you're doing a custom keyboard with isolation diode, you can disable ghosting detection, and do some other optimization. Now, I'm not going to go into details, but everything is documented here. There are examples of schematics that shows you how you should design the matrix if you're doing your own keyboard. There's a bunch of other details that are discussed here. The one I want to highlight for a second, it's a somewhat hidden feature that gets enabled automatically, and I think it's important based on what I see in the community of custom keyboards. So it's described in this paragraph, but basically there is some optimization in the driver that allows to use the driver in an efficient way with port expander. So this is useful if you are doing a custom keyboard with a module with a low pin count, like some of the Seed Studio one, which I see used a fair bit. And actually I have a small demo. So for developing this thing, I actually made a small board, which I'm going to show in a second. And this is the schematics, how it looks like. It's a 5x4 keyboard just for testing. And the rows are connected to an I2C port expander. And this is how my device tree looks like. So I have my GPU KBD matrix device, and the rows are on this PCIe 6408A over I2C, and the columns are directly on the microcontroller. And this is set up for no ghosting and direct drive. And then there's a child node. This node is going to generate row and column combination. Then there is a child node that you can instantiate to map the matrix to input event. And your application, you can pick up event on either one of those. And then the code that uses this has another functionality that has been imported upstream, which is these two input to HID modifier and input HID code, which are going to translate the input code to the HID code. Excuse me. And this allows you to do essentially an HID, a Bluetooth or USB HID device end-to-end with minimal application code. All of the matrix stuff and the codes are in the main repository as well. So yeah, there's that. So I have a small demo, and this is how my test board looks like. I'm not sure it's in focus, but there we go. I'm gonna press the button, and you can maybe see on the web application that they're gonna record and do other thing. So yeah, that's my demo.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for yeah. So there's yeah, there are samples in the tree already. So yeah, would be curious to hear what people think in the comments, and like if people have I've been looking at. I mean, yeah, it was really great to see this being added and supported. We will talk in a bit, time permitting, maybe on some of the things that you all have on your plate looking forward. Like, I'm pretty sure this is not the end of the input subsystem, and there's other things that you're looking at adding. So we can talk more about that in a moment. Let's yeah, what's next on the list of things that we are highlighted for the 3.6 release? All things networking. Like one thing, so I think I've been more involved with the Zephyr project over the last year or so, but one thing that's been around pretty much forever is the fact that it has like a really strong and really comprehensive networking stack, and it's always pretty impressive to see that not only like whenever new relevant standards, etc., come up, they get integrated, but there's also a lot of work that goes into making sure that the APIs remain like easy to use and scale quite well. So Robert, maybe you can tell us a bit about what yeah, some of the work that went into 3.6, like specifically here we're looking at new socket and co-op services and or service libraries. Like what is that exactly?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, indeed, the changelog for networking this release was pretty long, but those two libraries are probably worth providing more details on. So the co-op server library is a library that simplifies adding co-op server functionality to the applications. So until now, the applications implementing co-op server functionality needed to deal with a lot of low-level stuff like handling sockets themselves or deal with the packet parsing. And now it's all encapsulated within the co-op server library. And beyond that, the library also exposes convenience macros that allow to easily register separate co-op server instances, as well as add resources to the instances. So instead of having like bulky structures that we used to have to provide a list of resources, you can just now use the macros to define server resources, and underneath we will just put them in the linker section. Another library you mentioned, the socket services, is more of a utility library for other networking components. So we've been getting requests to either convert existing networking components to use socket API instead of low-level networking APIs we have, or to add new socket-based libraries. And the problem with sockets is that you need a thread to monitor them. And with all those independent socket-based libraries, this didn't really scale well because we don't have so many threads in the system. So that's where the idea for the socket service helper library came in, that instead of having those components to define their own threads, we have a single helper library that defines a thread for sockets for monitoring sockets, and all of those actual networking components that would like to use sockets as their underlying API can just register their sockets for in the services library to monitor, and instead of having to deal with them on a thread, they get a nice callback call whenever new data, for example, is available on the socket. So as an example, we have already converted the Zephyr library to use the services, and which gave measurable results. Like I believe it was about 4 kilobytes of RAM savings for the threads the library used to declare. And we also have new components this release, like DHCP server for IPv4, which is also based on the socket services.
Nice, right? Yeah, I'm trying to share here. The callback that you were mentioning before, like we can. So for folks checking out the DHCP v4 server, like they can have a nice example of how things are looking at. One thing that I think also was worth highlighting is, and this is not the only area where a lot of work went into the documentation, but I think you've also added a network configuration guide, right, to the documentation.
Yes, exactly. We are often approached on Discord by several users asking for some tips or guidelines about how to configure networking options for their applications. So we figured that it would be good addition to have such a configuration page, that documentation page that just summarizes commonly used networking kconfig options that often needs tweaking for individual use cases. So this page provides a brief description for each option on what it does and what are the guidelines for modifying the option value.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks. All right, moving on. And again, please, people, if you have questions, it doesn't have to be about networking. It could be anything really. Just put them in the chat. Next, this is not necessarily the easiest thing to demo because a lot of things go into security at like the really low level. But we have our security architect today on the stream. Flavio, why don't you tell us a bit about things like, I mean, yeah, the TFM 2.0 integration, but I'm sure there's other noteworthy security things that went into the release. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we have updated TFM for 2.0, that it's the latest version. This release got a big improvement in memory footprint due to the introduction of a new elliptic curve implementation. Another good highlight for this version is the change in the build system to split the security and non-secure image. That is particularly interesting for us because it will help us in future to decouple embedded TLS, for instance, allowing us to have different versions of the library. Since we are talking about embedded TLS, it was also updated to the latest version 3.5.2. That was an incremental release, mostly addressing vulnerabilities And if you don't mind, Benjamin, since we are talking about security, I will expand a little bit because we made significant enhancements in this area. So several vulnerabilities were reported and addressed during this cycle. We started again to run static analysis consistently and have defined a process to deal with these findings, so that that was pretty awesome from my perspective. Talking about the static analysis, we have added support for GCC static analysis as well, so that provides access to simple static analysis solution for everyone. Another good enhancement that we made during this release was in the SBOM. As you may know, WES, the command line tool used for managing Zephyr projects, provides functionality to generate the software bill of materials, SBOM, that it's basically a list of components used in a specific target. But until now, this list was showing all files and their license used during the build, but was not saying which modules were used. So, for example, if you had built something using BetLS, all in BetLS files would be listed as part of Zephyr image, but would not tell you that the BetLS package itself or module was used. Now, the SCPDX generated contains the modules that were included in the build, and that is a step towards the next big thing in this area that we started in this release, that it's adding the CPE information for Zephyr modules. The CPE, it's nice because it's basically a unique identification for a component, and this information can be used to track vulnerabilities in third-party modules. With this feature, we'll be able to automate this vulnerability monitoring for modules.
Nice. Yeah, really looking forward. And actually, one thing that I really like to see is that the some of the work that went into improving the SBOM tooling, it's actually like community contributions and people building actual products on top of Zephyr and realizing that they need even more in terms of software supply chain management, etc., and just contributing it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was awesome because we had this issue open, and someone from the community just appeared and says, "Oh, can I contribute with this?" And I was sure, absolutely.
Yeah, yes, please. Yeah. All right. I think we have a few questions that lined up in the chat. Let's try and take them maybe before moving on to the rest. This might be to Robert or anyone really. I think I might know who's asking, and it's certainly not the first time I'm seeing that. People really appreciate like the way network buffers allow them to deal with like memory buffers in a way that's not necessarily always. It doesn't have to do with the purely networking stuff. Are there any plans for decoupling the two and making it easier to use network buffer concepts outside of the networking subsystems? Robert, do you have thoughts on that or comments?
Well, actually, as a matter of fact, indeed the netbuff implementation lies in the subsysnet, but it's not tightly coupled with the networking subsystem. You don't need to enable networking to use it. And actually, I'm pretty sure netbuffs are already used outside of the networking area. So, for example, in Bluetooth or USB, I believe as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess maybe part of the question is if people find it so useful and might easily miss it, maybe there's something that we could do to make it easier for people to know that it's there and that it really doesn't have to be networking specific. I guess maybe that's part of the question there. But yeah, I would encourage whoever LinkedIn user is to join us on Discord, maybe to continue the conversation. Timon is adding, is commenting on, and I think any of you could certainly answer that one. If I want to contribute some drivers to upstream any resources I should look at beforehand to prepare a PR, my take on this would be just look at whatever existing driver is close enough to what it is you want to accomplish and to implement, and use this as a starting point. But any other thoughts on that quickly? Again, Discord is also a good way to participate. But yeah, Briggs.
We have a quite comprehensive guide on the device tree. The device driver model in Zephyr in our documentation. That's definitely worth a read. before embarking on writing your first driver.
And if you're creating a PR as well, just submit it as a draft and just ask, and you'll probably get a bunch of help. It doesn't have to be perfect. Once you post it, you can post it in whatever state, and you'll get comments to help you along the way.
Yeah, and talking about meta, like I'm putting you on screen while you're speaking. Thanks for addressing the questions both live and in the YouTube chat, Bjarki. Yeah, Benedict is also pointing to the contribution guidelines that are, thanks for saying that they're nice and helpful. All right, moving on. Let's put my screen back. And I think next is, yeah, LLX. Like that's one quite a mysterious acronym for people who aren't familiar with it. So maybe Luca, you can tell us a bit about what LLX is in the first place and some of the work you guys and you specifically have been doing in 3.6 to make it easier for people to use LLX.
Of course. So yeah, the acronym is quite complex, and it comes from the fact that we wanted to use modules, but it's something that has already a different meaning in the Zephyr subsystem. So we had to find some other way to explain what this is all about. So it's actually something very similar to what a kernel module how that a kernel module works, but in the Zephyr subsystem. So it's a way to load dynamically a different part of the application and unload and call from the main core some functions that are provided in a different blob. And it's something that has lots of different applications, and some of them are really complex, like for example what's been worked on by Intel is probably the best example. It's the sound open firmware, where you can use this subsystem to load separate audio filters or audio drivers from a common place. But there are also very nice showcases, like the one that you made in the video, Ben. So if you guys haven't seen the release video, check out the Ben's release video with the demonstration of what can be done with the LLX subsystem now. There are quite a lot of work going on behind the scenes, but it's really nice to see that it's useful to in such an easy way.
Yeah, so yeah, and the demo, and I can put the link in the chat maybe, but it's easy to find online. Actually, there's over 2,000 people who already watched the video in just the past few days, which I'm really excited and happy about. So yeah, loading dynamically a graphical user interface is basically what's shown in the video. I'm going to put everyone back on screen, and this is going to be like, I will take Mahmoud's question now. Is LLX, or would LLX be relevant or helping in the context of making it easier in Zephyr to do things like, well, one, I guess, loading and interpreting device tree dynamically, but also kind of related, be able to dynamically load a driver that might not have been necessarily part of the initial binary image and of the application initially, but that you may want to add dynamically. I guess in the Arduino context, it might be specifically relevant, but yeah, thoughts on that? Like, does that even make sense?
Yeah, that's probably something that is a side topic related to LLX, but it's still really relevant, since our goal as Arduino as a company is to enable users to use Zephyr in the easiest way possible. And for example, to interact with our IDE or something, and do experiment without having a very deep knowledge of the project or electronics or whatever, just starting from the beginning. And having a way to change the contents of device tree would be really a dream for us. It's something that is very important for the Zephyr project as it is now. So it's gonna take a lot of time to find a way to have this dynamically editable, but that's also a goal for us as well. So we'll be working on having some of this customizable at runtime.
Hey Ben, I think it takes more than just being able to load something dynamically. I mean, this is more than just loading data. There is, I mean, the way things work right now with the device tree is that everything, I mean, the device tree is evaluated at build time, and all of the infrastructure around device driver, it's rely on this fact. Now, if you say, hey, I mean, I want to load that at runtime and load that into memory, that means that needs to be something that you actually load very early on and do the evaluation of what you have, what devices are enabled, and so on at runtime. Yeah. So it takes really more than just being able to load something, using LLXT or something like that. It's a completely, I would say it's completely orthogonal. I mentioned in the comment, I mean, the main reason this was done was the fact that we want to be able to fit on the smallest of devices the same way we actually work with large devices. And a lot of things, a lot of paradigms, a lot of the philosophy behind Zephyr is that whatever you build is exactly what you get. Yeah. So in terms of like memory management, in terms of determinism and so on. And so that's why a lot of things are done at build time. But as one of the commenters said there, I mean, obviously when Zephyr was started 8-9 years ago, so whatever, this was, I mean, we were like looking at very memory constrained devices, etc. But if you look right now at the portfolio of platforms, that obviously goes beyond just like tiny MCUs. Certainly, some of which are able to deal with the memory needed for something like device tree and other features, LLXT and stuff like that. But and I don't think from a project perspective there is like a total no to this. It just has to coexist, right? Somebody comes in, hey, and say, I made it work. This is my proposal. The previous functionality probably can continue as is, but you can choose to do things dynamically. That is definitely something we will look at. Yeah, but it's a large dependency right now, and it's not going to be like definitely not a one-line change, yeah, or using LLXT, yeah. So it's more than this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Any other comments from the other participants on this particular topic?
Regarding LLX, to summarize it a bit, so where it is currently is it's more at a point where you can write an application, run in user space, or on the application level. That's where it's very useful right now, at least. And when it comes to replacing a device driver, I cannot even see how that will really work yet, at least with the current kernel, how it works.
The kernel and the way the life cycle of the world system is managed.
But modifying the kernel at runtime is kind of
step by step.
Unload a module or driver right now.
Yeah, let me give you some background to this. So this, if you look at the history of LXT or module, this is like an issue that we had for years, right? I mean, we had that probably since the beginning, and there was an attempt. There was like an initial pull request by somebody from Intel to actually just look and investigate that, but then it was dormant for a while, and last year it was picked by Tom. Burdick also from Intel, and he started looking at this. And then at ZDS, I was having lunch with Fabio and one of the guys from Arduino, and I forgot the name right now. Yeah, but he was showing how he actually does things and loads stuff into Arduino board. I tell him, what are you doing? This is exactly what we are working on. Let's collaborate, and that's where the whole thing has started. And we thought it was like something unique to our use case or to Arduino, but based on what I see right now, and I'm really surprised. I'm getting there are so many questions, public and offline. People are pinging us. There are so many use cases, so many things that are people trying to do. There's actually a talk at ZDS talking about what people are doing with this. It's really amazing. And at some point I was also not really convinced on how is that going to work, with how Zephyr works, etc., etc. But the demos I am seeing and all the use cases that are coming are really amazing. I mean, it's definitely a use case that everybody wanted, but nobody dared actually to go do it. And through collaboration in the project between right now, like Intel, Arduino, and others who are working also offline, the SOF team, etc., this is becoming really a major feature. Yeah, and I'm really pleasantly surprised that it's working really well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And like, it's really nice to see, even if it's still the early stages, seeing collaboration when the feature is not even fully baked just yet. That's usually a really, really good sign. All right, and we have people still joining us from Massachusetts. Dave, welcome back. I guess you were on the show not so long ago. Let's see. Let's put my screen back. Moving on, because we have only a few minutes left. Or at least like a short 15 minutes left. Maybe, I mean, Anas, I will pick on you to talk maybe to those two real quick. I think Intel is working quite a lot on the extensor architecture, and I believe you are the ones who helped with adding user space support. So maybe you can talk to that, and kind of related before we move on to the next topic. I mean, not related, but I will ask you to briefly maybe mention what finally getting LTO support means for the project, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, just quick on the extensor. I mean, user space, is right now, enabled on most architectures. I mean, it started with x86, then ARM, then ARC, RISC-V. What else? I mean, there are others probably that are enabled as well. And extensor actually was like one of those architectures that people thought, why would you do that, etc., etc. But it seems like there is also use cases for this, also on extensor. And last year or 2 years ago, we started actually enabling, and by the way, it was the initial support for MMU on extensor was done by Flavio, who's sitting here as well. So that was done by Flavio, and we pushed that up. So first we enabled obviously the MMU, and then we added user space on top of that, and the extensor product line supports. I mean, this is all obviously like a choice you make when you design your SoC. So you can have it with MPU, you can have it with MMU. So our target hardware currently has MMU, but we are also working on something that has an MPU. So that's something that is being added right now by Daniel, also from Intel. There's a pull request adding this. And that actually ties also to the LLXT stuff. So it all like works together. So you want also to control like these loadable modules, let's call them, and what they can do. So making that work with user space is really a benefit, because then you can make sure that no rogue or no bad actors can go in through external modules by just limiting them to out of the kernel space. So yeah, this is coming along. There's a lot of interest, so we push that, and there's a lot of interest on the extensor users actually to use that as well. There are other companies doing things with MMU, so hopefully we will get more collaboration there, and that's happening already. right now. I think somebody from Google is already looking at this, and there are MediaTek and others, that have similar architecture. And LTO, this is another thing that has been there for a while as a request, and finally somebody went and do it and did it. Right now, I mean, the initial pull request that went in was like limited to certain areas, but it's already improving the footprint in some use cases, and hopefully more. And I saw yesterday like another.
Yeah. I was going to mention it. Like I didn't realize that the first sort of version or initial support didn't even look at enabling LTO for the actual application code, which now there is a PR for that, and it brings even more optimization in terms of size. So that's that's quite nice. And again, for folks watching us and we don't know where to look to learn more, there's both a blog post and of course the release notes for 3.6 with all the pointers to learn more and to dive deeper into all the things that we've mentioned. One thing that we haven't covered just yet is, and there's a lot of work that went into it also, probably more actually than just documentation work, but that's certainly always nice to see. So Alberto was responsible for the native simulator. Maybe you can tell us a bit about like some of the work you did. And I guess with the minutes we have left, we will also keep grilling you on the fact that you will be a release manager for 3.7, so we can also chat about that as well. So yeah, tell us a bit about the native simulator, maybe. And I can actually pull the docs if you want.
Yeah, please. Yeah, so the native simulator is the replacement for native POSIX. We introduced it in the previous release, and so far it seems to be working nicely. And eventually we will be removing the native POSIX out of the tree. But by now you can use either. But what this point our documentation is mostly about is that over the years, quite many peripherals have been added and emulators. Peripherals specific for native POSIX or native SIM, and emulators that could be used also with other platforms. And quite many people had doubts about what options they had, what they could use or not, in what cases. So we have tried to clarify this a little bit. We also have a link a little bit below to a new page that tries to provide an exhaustive list of what emulators we have available in all platforms. So yeah, that has been this, and I hope that people will be able to find their way a little bit better with this.
Nice, yeah, and I guess looking forward to 3.7 and others, feel free to chime in with things that you have, that you have on your plate already in terms of roadmap. But regarding native simulator, I think I saw that there's already some work being done to help with like one thing that I personally sometimes find scary, or like that I don't always want to spend a lot of time setting up, is getting a good network simulation infrastructure when using a native simulator, and like having all the network interfaces set up. I think there's work that will go into making it way easier to simulate networking stuff in a simulated environment, right?
Yeah, today we have a virtual tab driver that you can use to connect to a virtual device in your Linux kernel. Now a new driver is being added that is looking very promising, and I hope that we will have in very soon. That is actually skipping the layer 2 and instead just creating a socket into Linux, let's say, so you can, without any setup, just have your application directly connecting to your Linux network.
Nice.
So that should indeed simplify things quite a bit.
That's nice. It's actually really impressive to see that we're only just literally a couple days into the new release cycle, and there's already like new pretty significant features being either like almost like ready to be merged. Actually, one thing that maybe we want to talk about is the new hardware model that will be coming up. But yeah, with the 5 minutes we have left, and assuming that we caught up on all the questions, if there are more questions, people, please, I mean, now is the time, because if you want us to take them live, now is the chance. Yeah, folks, like, do you have comments or thoughts into what will be going into 3.7? I guess I mean, one, if all goes well, 3.7 will be the next long-term support version of Zephyr. But there's also a lot of work that's already happened and will be happening in the tree with regards to doing a big overhaul of the hardware, the way SoCs and boards are being described. So maybe one of you want to talk about that and what's coming for 3.7 in that regard. Sure, Fabio.
I can take it. Yeah, the hardware model 3.2. It's a massive work that pretty much a few of the folks from Nordic are driving at this stage. For the user, it may not mean that much, but it gives a better structured system for organizing variants of boards. So it's more of a cleanup. It's not like it allows to do things that, well, maybe at some extent, but it doesn't allow you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do. But it would prevent the application to be defined. It would prevent custom project to be defined in a more structured way, and the impact on the final project should be minimal, but the work behind it is massive. I wanted to call this out. There's going to be some really good documentation associated with the thing. Now it's going to be a breaking change, so every external project that defines a custom board, which is probably most of them, will have to be modified for this.
You're muted.
I'm muting myself. Yeah, one thing that I should mention, and it's not announced just yet, but you mentioned Nordic has been instrumental behind the scenes. We will have folks who were involved in the in this effort to tell us more about it and like what it means in terms of like if you have already boards that you will need to transition, etc. We will be doing a tech talk sometime in March, so stay tuned for that. Who else wanted to? Someone else was chatting. Jackie, was that you? No.
I just told you were muted. No,
okay, yeah, thanks.
For 3.7, a few things. So the modem subsystem in GNSS and stuff, like it's getting very stable, and essentially this entire release is going to be making it more stable, and hopefully getting some of the existing drivers moved over to the new modem subsystem. So yeah, really.
Do you want to answer Eric? So new modem drivers, sure, bring them. But Eric says that he felt like he could use more guidance, maybe than just the driver development docs. Any thoughts there?
So specifically for the modems, I myself am working on trying to implement the BG95, like a driver that has both GNSS and modem on it. And it is very complex, and I haven't found a good solution to it yet either. So essentially create some PRs, and we'll need to figure out how to do it because there's no recipe yet. There's only the foundation.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Do we want to talk about Timon's question or comment? Any plans for less macrobatics in the future? And I think Benedict also commented about the fact that, yeah, I mean, this is C, so that's we do with what we have. But any thoughts or comments there, folks?
Probably more.
You want more?
No, there's gonna be more.
Yeah.
There's some troubleshooting notes in the documentation, and if you flip the right flags and look at the right file, it's not as bad. There's something that you can do to help troubleshooting this stuff. So yeah, you better get used to it.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. I think we don't have any more questions in the chat. Any final or closing thoughts, people? So again, I think, yeah, Alberto, Anas, you will be the release managers for 3.7. So one thing that will be happening is that we are looking at the next long-term support version. So it's going to be interesting to see this for sure. And yeah, we will be back, like I said, in a few weeks' time. So I think the next Tech Talk is going to be all about the new hardware model V2. Always looking forward to hearing thoughts and comments from people either in the comments, or feel free to always, you can reach out on Discord. We are also pretty open in terms of schedule in the next few weeks. If you want to propose a talk, that's certainly most welcome, and you can ping me and we can work together on what that could be, and just do it. So I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye.
Bye.